Alright, we got the truck all jacked up and on blocks and jack stands. I went ahead and pulled the rear wheels off. The first thing that you're going to want to do is unbolt the U-bolts on both sides, and they take a 17mm socket. So go ahead and get those unbolted, and then you'll want to jack up the rear end and put it on blocks or jack stands or whatever to hold the rear end off of this leaf spring pack. Alright, once you've got that rear end blocked up and out of the way, this shock mount will just kind of swing out of the way once the U-bolts come off whenever you jack that up. And then you'll want to take a C-clamp and clamp your leaf springs on both sides. And then you've got a centering pin for your blocks. You'll want to put some vice grips on that to hold it. And then on the bottom side of that, there's a 14mm nut. And you'll want to loosen that nut up and take all the tension off the springs. And your clamps will hold the tension of the springs. So then after you get that centering bolt loose, you'll want to gradually ease off the tension on these clamps to release all the pressure off your leaf springs so you can take them apart. Alright, so there's these clamps that wrap around the leaf spring pack, and they kind of curl around and hold it to the main leaf. So you'll want to take a big pry bar and pry those out of the way, as you can see here, so that you can get it off of the main leaf. The front side has that as well, and on the outside portion of it, it bolts to the brake line, and that's just a 12mm bolt. So pull that out, and then you can pry the front side off of that main leaf. You'll want to do that before you take out that centering bolt, the centering pin for the leaf springs that goes into, it'll go into your lowering block. And then, so once you get these undone and then unbolt that centering pin, then you'll want to start undoing your clamps. What I did was just, I would do one turn on the front side here, and then one turn on the clamp on the back side, and just kept going back and forth one turn at a time until I had them completely loose. And then your leaf spring pack just kind of falls apart. So just pull it out of the way, and then what you'll want to do next is take your overload leaf here, the very bottom flat one, and bolt your pack back together with your centering pin. And on the centering pin, when you bolt it back together, this round part that you put the vice grips on will go on the top side, so it'll drop through like this, and then just bolt your centering pin back in to hold your overload leaf to your main leaf. And then once you get that done, you're monoleafed. Alright, so here is the overload bolted back to the main leaf with that centering pin there. And that part's pretty straightforward. Just hold it with the hold this top part with the vice grips, just like how you took it apart. And then that 14mm nut that you took off the bottom, there's enough threads there that you can tighten it all back together without the other two leaves in there. Also, if you're wanting to go lower, you can flip this bottom, this flat overload leaf, to the top side of the pack, and that'll make it basically the thickness of this overload, which is like, I don't know, probably 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch thick. It'll make it that much lower because it's basically adding it onto your lowering block. Alright, once you've got that done, you'll want to jack your rear end up so you've got enough space to put your lowering block in there. And you can see the lowering block has a centering pin in it as well, and it's got a hole in the bottom to sit on the centering pin on the leaves. So put your blocks in there. You'll want to do the tall part of an angled block toward the back and the short part toward the front, and then set your U-bolts down around the leaf springs like the original U-bolts were, and then you'll want to swing your shock and your lower mount back under the rear end. Alright, here's what it should look like when you get it all back together. Should be tight on the top and bottom. Shouldn't have any gaps or anything. These Wolf suspension U-bolts are very long-winded. My deep socket 19 wasn't quite deep enough for them, so I used, this is a through socket with a through socket extension just to get me down far enough that I could turn it good, but that's just a Pittsburgh tool that I got from Harbor Freight. It was like $15 for the whole set, but it worked out pretty good for this. So, okay, now to do the front. To reindex these torsion bars, the first thing you'll want to do is undo this bolt here on the torsion bar. That's the adjuster bolt. If you go up here where the torsion bar goes into the control arm, just follow that torsion bar all the way back, and down here at the end, there's a 17mm bolt there, and just take that all the way out. Alright, this is the front part of the torsion bar where it mounts to the control arm, and it's two 17mm bolts there, and they have nuts on the backside, so just slide a wrench in on the backside to hold it and get those zipped out. And then you'll want to clean this face where it mounts to the control arm, and it's kind of hard to tell there, but you'll want to mark a spline and a spline on the torsion bar itself. That way you know where you started at. And then from there, this is the passenger side, so we will pull the torsion bar out of that mount and turn it clockwise, and we're going 2 turns. You can go 3. My last truck I had 3 with a monoleaf and a 4-inch block, and it sit really level. But this truck we didn't go quite as low in the back, so we're just going to go 2 notches. And then you've also still got the adjustment in the back. So if it's not perfectly level, you can still adjust it in the back to fine tune it. But we're going to go 2 notches on this, and then we'll get it put back together. Alright, I decided to go ahead and pull the bump stop off the front. You can see here, there's the bump stop. It's a 14mm bolt or nut. I don't really know yet. I haven't pulled it out, but I just put a 14mm 1/2-inch drive, a long extension, and got it up here above the control arm where I could reach in above the tire to pull it out. I turned the wheels, that way I could see a little better while I was in there, but yeah, just go ahead and pull those out, and then you should be ready to set the truck on the ground. Alright, here's what it looks like when it's finished. That's a 2-notch index in the front and a monoleaf with a 3-inch angled block in the rear. The front could probably use a little bit of adjustment to get it perfectly level, but I'd like to get it out on level ground before I do that, but it looks pretty good to me. So good luck, guys. Hopefully this will help you.